My brother tried to take credit for my big achievement, so I let him, until the truth came out in the most unexpected way. I've spent my entire life being compared to my brother, Ryan the golden boy, but that all changed the day he stole my dream. You know that one kid in every family who can do no wrong? That was my brother Ryan. And then there was me, Ethan, the afterthought, yeah, he's doing fine, I guess, sibling. If you grew up with a golden child in the house, you already know how this story begins. I didn't realize it at first, of course. When you're little, you just assume your parents see you both the same. You think love is fair, you think effort matters, but then you grow up and you start to notice the small things: who gets the bigger slice of cake, who gets bragged about to relatives, who gets told they're special. Ryan was special. He was charming, outgoing, good at sports, and had this smile that could melt a teacher's patience. He could spill juice on the carpet and somehow make mom apologize for leaving the glass near the edge of the table. Meanwhile, if I so much as looked at the carpet wrong, I'd get a lecture about responsibility. Ethan, why can't you be more like your brother? That line became the soundtrack of my childhood. Ryan was 2 years older than me, but it felt like a lifetime of difference. When he got a B+ on a test, mom would bake him cookies and say, "See? Hard work pays off." When I got an A, it was, "Well, your brother's grades were better last semester." I remember being about 8 when it first clicked that I lived in his shadow. We were supposed to build model airplanes for a school project. Ryan convinced me to help him with his, said we could do it together. I spent hours gluing wings, aligning the propeller, painting it to look like an actual P-51 Mustang. It was my best work. The next day, Ryan walked into school holding the plane like it was his masterpiece. Didn't even mention me. When he won first prize, he gave me a smug little smile across the room like, "Thanks, bro." That's how it always went. Ryan didn't just want to succeed, he wanted to own success. Mine included. By the time I was 12, I'd stopped trying to compete. What was the point? Ryan was the family's son. The rest of us just orbited him. Dad used to say, "Your brother just has leadership qualities, Ethan. You'll understand when you're older." Yeah, leadership. That's one way to describe someone who lies, manipulates, and takes credit for your work. But back then, I didn't have those words. I just had a constant ache in my chest, the feeling that no matter what I did, I'd never be enough. I wasn't athletic like Ryan, but I had something else. I liked taking things apart: clocks, radios, remote control cars. Mom used to call it breaking stuff, but I was studying them. I wanted to understand how things worked. I'd spend hours in the garage tinkering with old scraps, trying to fix broken gadgets. Ryan used to laugh at me. "Still playing with junk, Ethan? You know no one's going to care how a fan motor works, right?" But here's the thing. I didn't care about people caring. I just loved it. The hum of a circuit, the smell of solder, the satisfaction of turning something dead back to life. It was the only time I felt in control when I was building. Except, of course, Ryan couldn't let me have that either. One summer, Dad brought home this old lawnmower that wouldn't start. Ryan was supposed to mow the grass for his allowance, but the machine was busted. Dad said, "I'll buy you a new one next week." But that night, I took it apart. It took me hours, greasy hands, mosquito bites, a flashlight between my teeth. But when I reconnected the spark plug, wire, and pulled the cord, it roared to life. I was so damn proud. I ran inside to tell Dad. He looked up from his newspaper and said, "Really? Ryan said he fixed it earlier." Ryan was sitting on the couch, smirking. "Yeah, I gave it a try before dinner. Must have worked." Dad patted him on the shoulder. "Good job, son. Always knew you had a mechanical mind." I just stood there, covered in oil, speechless. That night, I cried quietly in bed, pretending I had allergies when Mom asked what was wrong. It wasn't about the mower. It was about the pattern I finally recognized. Ryan took, I gave. Everyone believed him. High school made things worse. Ryan was the star quarterback, homecoming king, girls adored him, teachers excused him. He could skip a week of homework and still get an A because, well, Ryan's busy with team commitments. Meanwhile, I was the kid people forgot existed. I wasn't unpopular, I just wasn't seen. I remember once winning a regional science fair. I'd built this crude, solar-powered water purifier using recycled bottles and mirrors. It was clunky, but it worked water in, sunlight, clean water out. Mom was supposed to come see me get the award. She didn't. Why? Because Ryan had a football game that might get him scouted. When I told her afterward, she smiled half-heartedly. "That's nice, Ethan, but you know your brother's game was important. Don't be upset." I wasn't upset. I was numb. I learned to celebrate in silence. Every little victory I had happened alone. Still, I kept building. While Ryan partied, I was in the garage experimenting with scrap metal and old batteries. I started making small gadgets: a motorized fan that worked on solar panels, a portable phone charger powered by kinetic motion. They weren't revolutionary, but they were mine. Ryan called it nerd stuff. But sometimes I caught Dad looking at my projects like he wanted to be proud but couldn't quite allow himself to be. Like doing so would betray the family's chosen favorite. "Ryan's just more people-oriented," he'd say. "You're the quiet one. We all play our roles." That phrase haunted me. We all play our roles. It felt like mine was to be invisible. When Ryan graduated high school, the whole town showed up. He got a football scholarship, had a fancy ceremony, and my parents threw a party that probably cost more than my first year of college. When I graduated 2 years later, we went to Applebee's, just the four of us. Ryan didn't even show he said he was busy networking. That night, while mom and dad argued about his future, I quietly decided I was done trying to impress anyone. If I ever wanted to be seen truly seen, it wouldn't be through applause or validation. It would be through something undeniable, something so big, so tangible, that no one could ever take it from me. I didn't know what that was yet, but I knew where I'd start. With the one thing Ryan could never fake, understanding how things work. College was the first time I felt free. I studied mechanical engineering, surrounded by people who didn't care about small-town reputations or family hierarchies. No one compared me to Ryan there. Most of them didn't even know I had a brother, and for the first time in my life, that felt good. I spent late nights in the lab, fueled by cheap coffee and the quiet thrill of discovery. My professors noticed me. One even said, "Ethan, you've got a gift for systems design. Ever thought about applied energy research?" That sentence, "you've got a gift," stayed with me longer than I'd like to admit. I started experimenting with renewable energy. At first, it was small solar kits, motion-based charging, efficient power storage. Then one night, during a thunderstorm, I had an idea. What if portable, decentralized energy could power remote areas without grid dependency? What if a single compact unit could capture and store enough clean energy to run an entire small home? It was ambitious, maybe impossible, but for the first time, I felt like I had a purpose. So I started sketching designs, coding microcontrollers, running simulations. I didn't tell Ryan, I didn't tell anyone. This finally was mine. Back home though, nothing had changed. Every time I called my parents, the conversation somehow turned to Ryan. "Oh, your brother just got promoted again. Ryan's thinking about starting his own company. He's so ambitious. Ryan's new girlfriend is a lawyer, did you know?" They never asked what I was doing, and when they did, it was more out of politeness than curiosity. "Still playing with those gadgets?" Dad would laugh. I used to hang up and sit in silence, staring at my laptop screen until the anger faded into exhaustion. It wasn't jealousy, it was injustice. But I told myself it didn't matter, because someday, when I finished my project, when I built something real, they'd have no choice but to see me. Then one summer, Ryan came to visit me at college. I hadn't seen him in months. He showed up wearing designer sunglasses and that same grin he always used when he was about to ruin my piece. "Hey little bro," he said, clapping me on the back. "Heard you're doing some sciencey thing here. Mind if I crash for a few days?" Every part of me screamed no, but I couldn't say it. Years of conditioning made me default to yes, so I let him stay. He watched me work in my dorm one night, tools scattered everywhere, code running on screens, a half-assembled prototype on the table. "What's this?" he asked. I hesitated. "Just something I've been working on, a clean energy project." "Cool," he said, peering over my shoulder. "You know, I could help you pitch that someday. I'm good with people, you're good with wires and stuff. We'd make a great team." That sounded innocent. It always started that way with Ryan, innocent, but something in his tone made my stomach twist. I brushed it off and went back to work, not realizing that the person standing behind me, the brother I still secretly hoped would someday respect me, would soon become the reason I'd lose everything. That night, long after he went to bed, I sat by the window and stared out at the rain-soaked campus. For once, the storm didn't feel chaotic. It felt alive, like the sky was full of energy just waiting to be harnessed. In that moment, I made myself a promise, a quiet vow that I'd repeat countless times over the years to come. I'm going to build something no one can take from me. Not Ryan, not my parents, not anyone. It wasn't about proving them wrong anymore. It was about finally stepping out of the shadow I'd lived in my entire life, even if it meant burning the bridge behind me to do it. Turns out, it was just the reflection of someone else's spotlight. I was 21 when I started working seriously on what I called Project Helios, a portable, clean energy unit. It wasn't fancy at first. Just a bulky metal box with wires spilling out of it like spaghetti and a small display that blinked random numbers whenever it felt like it. But it worked. Using a hybrid of kinetic and solar input, it could power small devices, lights, fans, even a mini fridge, all from natural motion and sunlight. The idea was simple: make renewable energy portable, affordable, and self-sustaining. It wasn't about getting rich or famous. It was about proving something to my parents, to the world, and maybe a little to myself. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was doing something that truly mattered. I'd spend nights in the campus lab until sunrise, fueled by instant coffee and cheap noodles, with solder burns on my fingers and dark circles under my eyes. But I didn't care. The sound of that tiny device humming to life made every sacrifice worth it. Ryan, of course, came back into my life right when things were starting to go well. He'd been working some vague corporate job, business development, or whatever that means when you have no actual skills. He called one evening out of nowhere. "Hey, little bro," he said in that cheerful voice that always made my stomach twist. "Heard from mom you're doing something big at college? A clean energy thing?" I hesitated. "Yeah, it's a project I've been developing." "That's awesome, man. I'm actually working with some investors lately. Tech people, you know. Maybe I could help you with marketing or exposure or whatever. You focus on the tech, I handle the people. Team effort." He said it like he was doing me a favor. Part of me wanted to hang up, but another part, the tired, lonely part, thought, maybe this is how we fix things. Maybe this was his way of showing support. So I said yes. And just like that, I let the wolf back in the door. Ryan started visiting my lab. He'd stroll in with his perfect hair and confident grin, dressed like he was attending a TED Talk. He'd look around at the cables and circuit boards like they were alien artifacts. "Damn, bro," he'd say. "This stuff's way over my head. But hey, you need a brand name or a pitch deck? I'm your guy." At first, it was harmless. He helped me make a logo, set up a mock website, and even arrange a presentation for a small campus entrepreneurship event. I didn't mind. He seemed genuinely excited, proud, even. But slowly, little cracks started showing. Whenever professors or visitors came by, Ryan would slide in between us, shaking hands first, introducing himself as the co-founder. He'd rephrase my explanations into simpler, flashier words like, I was just the quiet tech guy behind the curtain, and he was the face of the operation. Ethan's the brains, I'm the voice, he'd say with that polished salesman smile. People loved him. Of course they did. Ryan could sell sand in a desert. I told myself it was fine. He was just helping. After all, I wasn't great with people. If Ryan's smooth talk got attention for the project, wasn't that a win for both of us? That's when Leah entered the picture. Leah was my girlfriend, or at least she was trying hard to be, considering how little time I spent outside the lab. She was studying environmental policy, and she actually believed in what I was doing. She'd bring me food, help me test a prototype, even stay up late proofreading my notes. She was smart, sarcastic, and didn't buy Ryan's crap for even a second. The first time they met, she pulled me aside after. I don't like him, she said bluntly. I laughed. You've met him once. Once is enough. He talks like a politician. He doesn't ask about the project, he asks about potential investors, funding, publicity. You realize he's just trying to make this about him, right? I sighed. Leah, he's my brother. He's trying to help. She crossed her arms. He's trying to use you. There's a difference. I brushed her off, even though deep down I knew she was right. But I wanted to believe Ryan had changed. I wanted to believe that maybe, for once, he wanted me to win too. A few weeks later, Ryan convinced me to let him polish my pitch presentation for the university's innovation showcase, a small competition with professors, alumni, and local entrepreneurs as judges. It's your chance to get noticed, bro, he said. Let me handle the delivery. You're the genius, but I'm the communicator. Trust me. So I did. Big mistake. When he took the stage, he started by thanking the incredible team behind the project, which apparently included him, his marketing associate, and technical lead Ethan. I stood in the audience, heart sinking, as he explained my invention in buzzwords I barely recognized. Cutting-edge sustainable energy, market disruption, visionary leadership. He spoke like he'd invented it. The judges nodded, impressed. When they asked technical questions, he'd glance at me and say, my brother Ethan handles the engineering side, like I was some random intern. He won third place, third, for my work. And when the judges congratulated him, Ryan said, we've been working on this concept for a while now. That word felt like a knife twisting slowly. After the event, Leah stormed up to me. Are you seriously okay with that? He hijacked your entire project. I know, I said quietly, but it's fine. We're just getting started. Ethan, that's not teamwork, that's theft with PowerPoint slides. I didn't answer. I just stared at Ryan across the room, surrounded by professors, shaking his hand, laughing, charming his way through the crowd like he'd been born for it. Maybe this was just how it worked in the real world. Maybe the talkers always won. I told myself that as I packed up my notes and tools, even though my stomach felt like it was on fire. Over the next few months, Ryan became my partner, at least on paper. He managed emails, handled communication with potential backers, and attended meetings I didn't even know were happening. Sometimes I'd hear about a pitch or a networking event after he'd already gone. Didn't want to bother you, bro. You're better in the lab than on stage. It sounded like a compliment. It wasn't. He was systematically removing me from my own project's narrative. But the worst part? Everyone bought it. Professors started congratulating him more than me. Investors would email him first. Even my advisor once said, your brother's got real leadership qualities. You're lucky to have him. I wanted to scream. Lucky? I'd spent my whole life cleaning up his messes. How was I lucky? Leah started drifting away after that. Not because she stopped caring, but because she couldn't stand watching me let it happen. Ethan, he's stealing from you in slow motion, she said one night, and you're just standing there, watching. I rubbed my eyes. You don't understand. If I fight him, my parents will take his side. They always do. I'll look jealous, bitter, I'll lose everyone. Maybe you already have, she whispered. That hit harder than I wanted to admit. Still, I pressed on. I buried myself in the work. I refined the design, improved the efficiency, replaced clunky wires with compact circuits. Each breakthrough felt like a small victory against the noise of Ryan's voice in my head. By the time winter came, Helios was no longer just an idea. It was real, small enough to fit in a backpack, powerful enough to charge an entire home's essentials for a day. I'd built something that could genuinely change lives, and for a few brief moments, I let myself feel proud. One night, alone in the lab, I connected the final components and hit the power switch. The soft hum that followed was music, steady, warm, alive. The LEDs glowed, the fan whirred, and the digital display read a stable power output beyond my predictions. I laughed out loud, an actual, stupid, delirious laugh. Months of sleepless nights, doubts, and quiet humiliation, all culminating in the single sound of success. I even recorded a short video to send to my parents, showing how it worked. I thought, maybe this would be the thing that finally made them proud of me. Ryan was out of town that week for some investor conference he'd mentioned vaguely. I didn't ask questions. I just wanted to enjoy my victory in peace. For once, it felt like I was ahead, like I'd built something Ryan couldn't possibly understand, let alone take credit for. I didn't know that at that exact moment, halfway across the state, my brother was standing on a stage with my designs, my presentation slides, and my prototype video playing behind him. He was smiling, shaking hands and saying words that would change both of our lives forever. I'm proud to present Helios, a project I've been developing for years. And as the audience erupted in applause, somewhere back in my dorm, I was still staring at that glowing machine, thinking for the first time in my life, maybe I've finally done something no one can take from me. I still remember exactly where I was when everything actually blew up. Not because of some cinematic reveal or dramatic confrontation, but because of the sound my phone made when it decided to betray me. A single, cheerful ping that turned my world into glass. I was finishing dinner in the lab, a sad burrito half wrapped in foil, the Helios prototype tucked safely under a blanket of bubble wrap on the workbench. The LED display was dimmed. I'd left it running on its low-power diagnostic mode because I didn't trust turning it off yet. It felt stupidly precious to me, like the first real thing I'd ever made that could stand up on its own. The message was from a number I didn't recognize. Subject line, "Congrats on Helios National Innovation Award. Ryan K." I skimmed it, thinking it was one of the automated notifications Ryan had been sending me for weeks about meetings and donor names. But the body of the email was not an automated ticket. It was a press release. It had headlines, a glossy paragraph structure, a professional headshot of Ryan shaking a politician's hand. It had quotes, "Proud to bring Helios to the nation. This is years of work." My burrito fell out of my hand. I read it again. The words blurred. I called Ryan immediately. It went straight to voicemail. My thumb hovered over the text button for a beat, and then I typed, hand shaking. "What is this? I built Helios. You used my slides. You used my demo video. What the hell?" There was no reply for 28 minutes. I paced around the lab, checking my laptop, refreshing email. The release had already been syndicated to a handful of local news outlets. Then someone had uploaded clips of a conference to social media. In the video filmed by someone in the crowd with a shaky phone, Ryan stood center stage in a spotlight, grinned bright and practiced. Behind him, my demo video played. My prototype was on the table behind a plexiglass case, and my code ran across the monitor. He spoke with that practice cadence, the one that made people lean in. "We're proud to present Helios, a compact, scalable, clean energy solution that we believe will transform access to power for remote communities." He gestured toward the screen as if he'd invented the thing himself. "We've been refining this for years, and today we're honored to accept the National Innovation Award on behalf of our team." They handed him a plaque. He grinned and looked directly at the camera like a man who already owned the future. In the background of the clip, people clapped and shouted, and in the close-up, you could see the flash of photographers. The crowd loved him. The clip went viral within hours. I sat down on a metal stool and felt faint. This wasn't just a lie. It was a theft staged on a stage with lights and a microphone and strangers to witness it. In the press release, he mentioned investors we are in talks with. In the comments beneath the video, people congratulated Ryan on his vision. "The next Elon," one comment said. Another, "So proud of you, Ryan." A third, "Amazing work, team, happy to be an investor." My inbox filled with forwarded articles and messages from people I barely knew, all congratulating him. One of the emails was from a small venture group interested in meeting the team. They'd sent an attachment, term sheet, a link to their website. A note, "We're excited to hear more about what Helios can do at scale. Can we set a call with Ryan and his co-founders?" My hands felt like cold bricks. I watched the screen and tried to breathe. I tried to call Ryan again. This time he picked up. "Ethan, man, this is huge," he said, his voice high and jubilant, like a man who had just swallowed a sky. "Can you believe it? National award. Investors already calling. We might be looking at a seed round in the millions, bro. Millions. This is it." "Where did you get the video?" I managed. My voice was thin. "What video?" "The demo, the one I recorded in the lab, the slides, the prototype photos, the code snippets." "Ryan, those are mine." He laughed a little too bright. "Bro, we talked about this. You gave me the materials to help shape the pitch. We're a team. You're the genius behind Helios. I'm the one who can sell it. You used my name and took credit. You didn't even tell me you were pitching it at a national conference." "I didn't think I needed to," he said. "You're busy, man. You're the engineering lead. I'm the founder. That's how startups work." My jaw tightened so hard I tasted metal. "You're the founder because you put your name on our slides and talked a good game for 15 minutes in front of a camera. You didn't build this." "Well, Ethan," he said smoothly, "you need to learn to play the game." Then almost casually, "We'll sort this out. Don't freak out. This is huge for both of us." That call was the first sounding of an alarm I'd been deaf to for years. It slammed into me with the force of betrayal, not only because he'd stolen the project, but because he'd done it in public. He'd handed me the humiliation on a silver platter and then smiled through it. I tried to reach out to the conference organizers. I sent frantic emails and left voicemails explaining that Helios was my project and that they'd use my intellectual property without authorization. One organizer called back, "We're sorry for the confusion. We were under the impression this was submitted by the team listed on the submission, Mr. Ryan K. If there's a dispute, we'll need documentation." Documentation, patent filings, lab notebooks, emails. My brain started cataloging proof the way a drowning person clings to driftwood. I had the prototype video with file metadata, I had timestamps on my commits in the code repository. I had a lab notebook with dated entries. I had emails where I'd shared slides with Ryan, but they were sent to him privately, and the conference submission process had been managed by him. I wasn't organized enough to have a formal patent filed yet. I hadn't prepared for someone to weaponize my own goodwill against me. It didn't matter. In the court of public opinion and the first meetings with investors, optics mattered more than timestamps. Ryan had already mastered the optics. He had a shiny stage, a camera-ready smile, and press. The award party was the next day. The conference held a gala. Reporters, shiny shoes, the hum of expensive conversations. My advisor, Dr. Mendel, the man who had pulled me into applied energy research and stayed up late reading my convoluted notes, texted, saw the video. Congrats? I stared at the message in disbelief and then wrote back, that's not Ryan's work, it's mine. He took it. He's using my materials. He called me in less than a minute. Ethan, I'm on my way to the gala. I'll talk to him. Don't. He stopped. Ethan, are you sure? Are you absolutely sure? Yes, I said. I felt ridiculous having to assert my own authorship like a defendable claim in a court of law. He used my slides. He used the demo I recorded. He presented it as his own. Dr. Mendel was silent. You could hear the sounds of a gala through the line, clinking glasses, laughter, a soft piano. I'll be there, he said finally. Don't go? Of course I couldn't not go. I arrived at the gala feeling like a ghost. Ryan greeted me with a hug and the same grin he wore for cameras. He introduced me to investors as my brother and technical lead, Ethan. What that meant in the warmth of the room was a far cry from the video. There it was a strategic placement, a way to mute suspicion. I cornered him once we were away from the press. Why did you do it? I asked quietly. He put a hand on my shoulder like he was giving me comfort. Because I did what had to be done. You're brilliant, but you don't know how to sell it. I do. I get meetings, we get funding. You should be happy. Happy? You just took my work and sold it like it was your own. He shrugged. The important thing is Helios gets attention. That's a win. You should be grateful. Grateful. The word tasted like ash. Within 48 hours, investors were on conference calls. Ryan was on stage again, though this time it was a private pitch meeting, a boardroom with a long table and men in well-pressed suits. I wasn't on that call. I watched through a cracked window as video feeds and slide decks were shared. The term sheet from a mid-sized venture group landed in my inbox, copied to Ryan. It was real. The number was obscene. Millions. My hands trembled looking at it. I thought about calling the investor directly. I drafted a message explaining the situation and then deleted it because part of me still needed to believe that when they dug into the code, the signatures and timestamps would shout my authorship. Part of me wanted to believe that truth was a force that would right everything. Instead, at a pitch meeting, a young investor with a soft voice asked, "So, Ryan, what's your long-term plan for Helios?" He smiled at him like he was expecting a founder's manifesto. Ryan, in his element, painted the future: manufacturing partnerships, pilot deployment in rural communities, government grants. He used the words I'd used in my lab notebooks, but the delivery was polished. He spoke of a social mission and profitability in the same breath. The investors nodded, impressed. I wanted to stand up and shout. I wrote those projections. I wanted to slam my palms down on the table and show them the schematics I'd sketched under fluorescent lights, but I felt small and ridiculous. Then an email from my mother. "Your father and I saw the article. We're so proud of you both. Ryan called and said he'll be back next week for dinner to celebrate. Love, Mom." My chest constricted. They meant it. My parents, who had for years handed the crown to Ryan for every minor success, sent their congratulations to the son who stood in the lights while their quieter son rotted in the shadows. Leah called that night. I don't know why. Maybe she wanted to be supportive. Maybe she wanted to hold me while I felt my world fracture. Her voice on the phone was steady but quiet. "I saw the piece," she said. "I'm so sorry, Ethan." "I don't know how to fight this," I said. "No one believes me when I say it's mine. It's like I never existed before they saw him on TV." She was silent for a beat. "You always existed, you always do, but people, they see what they're told to see." "I can't even get Dr. Mendel to commit," I said. "He's on the fence because the conference paperwork lists Ryan as the submitter. I have timestamps and lab notes and code commits, but in a conference hall, optics beat metadata." "Then do it publicly," she said quietly. "Release a timeline, show your commits, put your code on a public repo with timestamps, file an immediate provisional patent, make the provenance impossible to ignore." I felt a spark of hope. "I'm doing that. I'm gathering everything." She exhaled. "Good. And Ethan, I need to say something else. I can't do this if you keep letting it hurt you. If this is going to ruin your life, I can't watch you destroy yourself. I love you, but I can't stay in the middle of a war you're not willing to fight." Her words hit like a blunt instrument. I tried to tell myself it was reasonable. I tried to tell myself that being asked to choose was not the end. But when she said, "I can't stay," there was finality in it. The phone call ended with her saying she needed space. I sat on the cold floor of the lab and hit my head against the bench until the throb in my skull matched the pain in my chest. The prototype hummed quietly, oblivious to the betrayal it had become the center of. The bubble wrap rustled under my fingers. What followed was a blur of legalese and meetings and people who all wanted a seat at the table where Helios now sat like a gilded prize. My inbox filled with requests from media outlets, from small accelerators, from government grant committees asking for the inventor's statement. When I replied, people told me to be patient. When I tried to present my proof, I was told to work through proper channels. Channels in practice meant Ryan's guys, the people who had him on their Rolodex. One investor called me directly in what I thought would be a moment of sanity. Listen, she said, we're excited about Helios, but we need a unified team front. If there's a dispute, it makes us nervous. The legal process could delay everything. Are you willing to work under Ryan as CTO and let the lawyers handle the rest? Condense years of humiliation into a single, devastating question. Are you willing to give up the narrative of your life for the possibility your project survives? I could feel the room of my life constrict around me. If I agreed, I would remain the invisible wizard behind the curtain. If I refused, I might lose everything. Investment, momentum, the chance to scale a device that could change lives. I found myself bargaining in my head. The way you bargain on a mountaintop when you're out of oxygen. If I give up my name now, maybe the project can get to the people who need it. Maybe that matters more than being seen. The logic tasted like cheap wine. I almost said yes, but I also imagined walking into a village 10 years from now and seeing Helios units mounted on porches and hearing people praise Ryan in the same way the press was praising him now, while I stood in the background and watched my dream be read as his success. That imagination made my skin crawl. Meanwhile, at home, my parents were texting photos from the dinner Ryan had arranged after the award. My father posted a proud picture on social media of himself with Ryan, captioned, "So proud of my son." Comments poured in. Everyone was convinced. My mother sent a longer message. "We are so happy for Ryan. He's always had that spark." The use of the past tense and the irrevocable tone gutted me. I replied, trying to be concise, professional, "Mom, this is my project. Please read the attached timeline." I spoke about Helios first in Dr. Mendel's lab in September. I recorded my initial demo on December 3rd. I shared slides with Ryan on January 10th. She replied with heart emojis and, moments later, another message. "We love you both. Don't fight. Family matters more than work. Family matters more than work. Family matters more than justice." In that moment, I realized family could be a weapon when deployed with the right narrative. Leah's parting words looped in my head. She had chosen sanity and distance over the chaos of defending a stolen identity in real time. She left me in a way that felt like an indictment of my own inaction. The fact that she left didn't just hurt. It opened a hollow place where beliefs in loyalty had lived. I started to lose myself in smaller things. I stopped going to class. I couldn't focus. When I tried to get the university to support me, their legal department told me to collect evidence and file a claim. That would take months. I watched Helios's name balloon in the media and the murmur of investors got louder. Ryan posted slick photos with people who used to ignore me. He posed with avatars of success. One night, fueled by too much bitter coffee and a silence that had teeth, I drove home to confront my parents. The ride was loud in its own way, the engine chugging, the radio playing a song I used to love that now sounded like it belonged to someone else's life. They were so surprised to see me. "Ethan, what a nice surprise," Mom said, folding me into a hug as if nothing had happened. Ryan sat in the living room, tall and complacent, a beer in his hand. He waved a little. The plaque for the national award gleamed on the mantel. I remember the table between us felt smaller than it used to, as if some invisible thing had slipped between us and made the room have different rules. I tried to explain, calmly, that Helios was mine. I showed pictures on my phone. I highlighted timestamps. I told them the story of nights in the lab, of missing class because of solder fumes and deadlines, of proof of concept and code commits. Dad listened like someone trying to follow a complicated joke. "Ethan," he said finally, "we're just so proud of Ryan. He's brought this to the limelight. These are good people. We don't want to get involved in legal fights. Family is family." "But Dad," I said, louder than I intended, "that's a lie. He stole it. He lied. He used my work and presented it as his own." Ryan scoffed. "Come on, man. We're brothers. We both worked on this. Don't be dramatic." I felt something cold and new in my chest, not the old ache of being overlooked, but a deeper, angrier thing. The feeling when you finally decide you won't be gaslit into silence anymore. I left without another word. On the drive back to the city, I kept repeating things like a mantra. You built this. You built this. You built this. It was the only way to remind myself that truth existed. The weeks after that were a blur of angry, legal limbo. I filed for a provisional patent. I released a public timeline with code timestamps and lab footage. I wrote a blog post laying out the evidence, a raw, unedited, furious thing that read like a confession and a claim in one. I posted it in a few forums, sent it to trusted mentors, and then watched as the internet, that endless, ravenous crowd, chewed its way through the story. The reaction was predictable and brutal. There were people who supported me. A few engineers, a grad student who had seen me at the lab, and an older professor who'd once told me I had a gift. But there was also a tidal wave of doubters. "Brothers fight," a comment read. "Maybe it's a misunderstanding." Another, "Startups are messy. Don't drag the guy who's about to get you funding." A crueler voice, "Maybe Ethan just can't take the heat." I wanted to scream. The internet is a place where nuance goes to die. In threads, people loved a villain and a hero, and narratives ossified into archetypes before you could catch them. Ryan's PR team pushed an alternative narrative. Co-founder Ryan had brought the message to market. Ethan was the brilliant but shy engineer who needed the spotlight to get attention. It was a tidy story. People liked tidy stories. Leah sent one last message a week after our argument. I can't watch you burn yourself alive fighting shadows, Ethan. I care about you too much to watch that. If you ever want to talk when things calm down, I'll be here. No anger, no accusation, just distance. That lit something in me that didn't quite go out. It turned instead into a slow, precise fury. Not the red-hot, impulsive revenge you see in movies, but a cold calculation. A long silence that sets its teeth. The night it all hit rock bottom, I sat in the dark lab with the prototype balanced on my knees. I thought about everything, the lawnmower, the model plane, the inverter I fixed at 12. I thought about all the small acts that had added up to this moment. I thought about Leah leaving and my parents clicking like under Ryan's post and Dr. Mendel's silence. I stared at Helios' soft glow and whispered into the dark, if he wants to claim my life, he can have it. There was no real plan in that whisper. It was a breaking point more than a strategy. But beneath it, a new thing was forming. Not the desperate hope of the kid who wanted validation, but something sharper and clearer. I could either let Hugo, a terrible name for a man who had stolen everything, walk away with my life's work, or I could reclaim the thing in a way that would be undeniable. I made a decision that night. It wasn't one born of sanity. It wasn't one born of a noble desire to save Helios for the world. It was darker, more selfish, and more honest. If Ryan wanted my life so badly, he could have it. I'd just make sure he'd choke on it. You know that eerie calm right after a storm? When everything is too quiet like the world pretending the chaos never happened? That was me. After Ryan stole Helios, after Leah left, after my parents told me family matters more than work, I vanished. Not dramatically, no goodbye posts, no closure texts. I just stopped existing publicly. To everyone else, I was the loser brother who couldn't handle losing gracefully. The one who blew up over a misunderstanding, and I let them think that. I deleted my social accounts, dropped out of my final semester, shut off my phone, and packed my life into a single backpack. I left the city one night and drove until the skyline turned into fields and the hum of traffic became crickets. My parents called once, just once. I didn't answer. Ryan didn't call at all. He didn't have to. He thought he'd already won. But while he was playing founder in shiny suits, smiling in magazine interviews about his invention, I was living in a half-abandoned workshop behind a junkyard 20 miles outside town, the kind of place where no one cared if you made noise at 3 a.m. or set something on fire by accident. And that's where I started again. Helios 2.0, or Project Ghostlight, as I called it in my notes, wasn't meant for investors or public acclaim. It was built for revenge. The first Helios was clean, efficient, and elegant. This one was vengeful, messy, and paranoid. Every chip, every circuit, every single data packet that pulsed through it screamed proof of authorship with embedded cryptographic signatures, timestamp firmware metadata, and unique ID logs tied directly to my biometric profile. If someone sold this one, they wouldn't just be stealing my work. They'd be leaving a glowing trail that pointed right back to me. I wanted something undeniable, something the world couldn't rewrite. The first month was brutal. The workshop leaked when it rained, rats sometimes chewed my wires, and I practically lived on black coffee and gas station sandwiches. But there was a strange peace in the isolation. No investors, no professors, no smiling brother pretending to lead the team. Just me, the hum of circuits, and the faint static buzz of vengeance in my ears. I didn't plan to stay hidden forever. I was waiting for the right time and for Ryan's empire to start cracking. The first sign came sooner than I expected. One night, I was scrolling through tech news at a dingy internet cafe when I saw a small headline buried under the day's startup fluff. Helios Inc. faces product delays amid technical uncertainty. I clicked it faster than I've ever clicked anything. The article was vague, but it hinted that the next stage prototype wasn't meeting energy benchmarks that investors were concerned about leadership transparency. Translation, Ryan didn't have a clue how Helios worked. I laughed quietly into my coffee. Of course he didn't. The version I'd built was complex, built on algorithms and efficiency balancing models that took me months to perfect. He probably looked at the schematics and saw gibberish. But the investors? They wouldn't stay patient for long, and Ryan's mask only worked as long as the light stayed on. I started collecting every scrap of information I could. Public filings, investor presentations, leaked employee reviews on Glassdoor. I wanted to know how deep the cracks went. And that's when I found her. Her name was Nora Bennett, a systems engineer at Helios Inc., one of the few people who actually seemed competent. She'd left a review online complaining about upper management refusing to listen to technical feedback. That was all I needed to know. I created a new identity, Eli Carter, freelance systems consultant. I polished a fake LinkedIn, complete with a vague background in renewable microtech solutions. I even used an AI headshot generator for a slightly different profile picture, adjusting my jawline and hair just enough that I looked like a distant cousin of myself. Then I reached out to Nora under the alias, Hey, saw your comment on a forum about Helios's efficiency problems. I've been studying similar systems if you ever want an outside perspective. Happy to brainstorm. She replied within an hour. If you can help fix what our CEO broke, I'll owe you a drink. That was the start. Nora was sharp, sarcastic, and exactly the kind of person Ryan hated: direct, no nonsense, allergic to ego. She joined Helios thinking it was a visionary company. Within 3 months, she'd realized the visionary couldn't tell a capacitor from a resistor. Through late night chats, she started confiding in me, or rather, Eli. She complained about how Ryan constantly overpromised to investors, about how their latest prototypes kept shorting out, about how the codebase looked like someone had copied it from YouTube tutorials. I almost felt bad for her because she didn't know I was the ghost in the story. Over time, I started helping her. Small things at first: debugging a power distribution problem, optimizing thermal balance. I sent her code snippets under the guise of suggestions, and she'd test them in the Helios lab. Every time she sent feedback, I learned more about how Ryan's company was imploding from the inside. And the best part, he had no idea. He thought his tech team was finally making progress, when in reality, the man solving his problems was the brother he'd buried. Weeks turned into months. I could feel the tide turning. Investors were getting restless, and Ryan's charm was starting to crack under pressure. I saw clips from interviews where he looked strained, less confident. There was even a blog post speculating if Helios was the next Theranos. For once, the universe had a sense of humor. Meanwhile, Nora and I grew closer. She was funny, the kind of funny that hides exhaustion. She'd talk about how she dreamed of working for a company that changed the world, only to end up babysitting a fraud. She'd say things like, "Sometimes I wonder if the real inventor's out there somewhere, watching this mess burn." And I'd stare at the screen, wondering if I should tell her the truth, but I didn't. Because if I did, she'd be dragged into my personal war, and I didn't want to taint the one genuine friendship I'd built since the fallout. So I stayed Eli Carter, the helpful freelancer who never showed his face on Zoom. Still, there were nights when I'd sit in the workshop staring at the glowing shell of Ghostlight and question what the hell I was even doing. When you live off rage long enough, it starts to rot inside you. You start mistaking revenge for purpose. I built this entire identity, fake name, fake job, fake peace, just to tear down my brother. But sometimes, I'd wake up and forget what winning was supposed to look like. Would it be seeing Ryan's company collapse? Watching him lose everything? Or was it just finally being seen for who I was? I didn't know anymore. Some nights, I'd dream of Leah, her voice, soft but sharp, saying, "You're fighting shadows, Ethan." She was right, but I couldn't stop, because deep down, I wasn't done being the ghost. Not until the whole house of lies came down. Then came the call. It was a Thursday night, around midnight. I was soldering a new circuit array when my phone, my real phone, the one I hadn't turned on in months, buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. But something, intuition, maybe fate, made me answer. "Hello? Ethan." That voice, smooth, calm, practiced. "Ryan." My chest tightened. "What do you want?" He sighed like we were two businessmen instead of brothers. "Mom's been worried sick. You've disappeared. It's time we bury the hatchet, man." I laughed, bitter and hollow. "Bury the hatchet? You buried me alive." "Look," he said, his voice dipping into that manipulative softness he used when he wanted something. "I know things got messy, but I want to make things right. Family dinner tomorrow night at Mom and Dad's. Just us. No press, no investors. Just family." It sounded too rehearsed, too coordinated. I hesitated. Every instinct screamed trap. But another voice, quieter, more dangerous, whispered, "This might be your moment." So I said, "Fine." He chuckled softly. "Good. I'll tell Mom you're coming." "And Ethan?" "What?" "I'm really glad you're finally letting this go." The line clicked dead. I sat in the dark workshop for a long time after that. The hum of Ghostlight filled the silence like a heartbeat. I should have ignored him. I should have stayed hidden. But there was something about his tone, that smug certainty, that told me he thought I was beaten. And that was reason enough to show up. So I packed Ghostlight into its case, locked my workshop door, and whispered to the empty room, "You wanted me gone, Ryan, but ghosts don't stay buried forever." And with that, I drove toward the dinner that would change everything. You ever have one of those nights where the air itself feels heavy, like the universe knows something's about to break? That was the night of the dinner. My parents had invited everyone. Family, investors, press, all to celebrate Ryan's next big innovation. The same brother who'd spent a lifetime taking credit for my ideas, my work, my name. And yet, I went uninvited. Not out of nostalgia, not out of love, but because I'd been waiting for this moment my entire life. The dinner was hosted at the Grand Mirabelle Hotel, the kind of place where the table linens are white as bone, and the chandeliers look like they're made from frozen tears. As I walked in, I saw Ryan at the center of it all, smiling, laughing, perfectly framed by flashing cameras and flashing teeth. He wore a navy suit I tailored so sharp it could have cut through the lies he built his empire on. His arm was around a blonde investor, Amanda Klein, CEO of a green energy fund, the same one who'd once emailed me for a product demo 2 years ago. He'd swooped in and stolen that too. I stayed in the back, half shadowed near the champagne bar. No one even noticed me, not even Mom, which was perfect, because for once, invisibility was my weapon. "Ladies and gentlemen," Ryan called out, tapping a fork against his glass, "thank you all for being here tonight. It's been a long journey, but the future is brighter than ever. And tonight, I'm proud to reveal our next generation clean energy module, a device that will change the way we power our homes, our cities, and our lives. Applause. Cheers. My father stood up, pride glowing in his eyes. That's my boy, he shouted. I almost laughed. That line, that's my boy. I'd spent 20 years chasing it. Ryan smiled, flipping open a velvet-covered box on the table, revealing the sleek metallic prototype I'd built in secret. My design, my firmware, my code. Every inch of it screamed mine. And the best part? Inside that device was my failsafe, an embedded cryptographic tag linked to my patent metadata, buried deep within the firmware, something only the real creator would know existed. I watched Ryan lift it, presenting it like a trophy. Ladies and gentlemen, he said proudly, the Aurora Core clean, portable, and efficient. 30% more output than our first design. The room erupted in applause again. Flashbulbs went off. Investors leaned forward, eyes gleaming. Then Ryan pressed the activation button. Nothing happened. A long, awkward pause filled the air. Ryan frowned, pressing it again. Still nothing. Somewhere near the back, a journalist muttered, "Did it die?" Ryan forced a laugh. "Just a small tech hiccup. Happens all the time." And then the lights in the room flickered. The projector screen behind him blinked on and words began scrolling across it in bright white letters on a black background. Property of Ethan Ward. Patent ID #ACEW 98214. Unauthorized replication detected. The room fell silent. You could hear the collective intake of breath, like everyone suddenly realized the floor beneath them wasn't solid. Ryan froze, face pale. He turned toward the screen as if he could glare it into submission. "What is this?" He snapped at one of his assistants. But the assistant looked just as confused, terrified even. And then I stepped out of the shadows. "Maybe I can explain," I said, my voice calm and steady. Every head turned toward me. Ryan's face contorted when he saw me, shock, fury, fear all mixed into one. "Ethan, what the hell are you doing here?" "I came to see the launch of my invention," I said softly, walking closer. "You know, the one you claimed was yours." Again, laughter rippled awkwardly through the crowd. The kind of nervous laughter people make when they're not sure if they're witnessing drama or disaster. Ryan's jaw tightened. "This isn't your invention. You left it behind when you dropped out. I developed it further." "Oh, really?" I raised an eyebrow. "You developed it?" "Funny, because the internal architecture uses my code, the one I encrypted months ago, the one that contains a digital signature that's only accessible through my biometric ID." Gasps, whispers. Cameras turned toward me now. "Would you like me to prove it?" I asked, pulling a small remote from my pocket. I pressed a button. The Aurora Core lit up instantly, beautifully humming softly like it recognized its real owner. Ryan's mouth dropped open. The investors started murmuring. Someone pulled out their phone, recording everything. My father stood, confused. "Ethan, what is this about?" "It's about the truth," I said. "For years, you all believed Ryan was the golden boy, the genius, the visionary. But he built that image using my work, my ideas, and my silence." Ryan slammed his hand on the table. "You're lying." I turned to the big screen. Computer, display last saved edit log. Instantly, the projector displayed a list of timestamps all linked to my name and encrypted signature. Ethan Ward, Ethan Ward, Ethan Ward. Every line. And one entry stood out where Ryan's assistant had accessed the files under my fake employee name, leaking them to Ryan's private folder. I left that trail on purpose. Ryan's face drained of color. You set me up." "No," I said, stepping closer. "You set yourself up. You just forgot who you stole from." For a long, unbearable minute, no one spoke. Then Amanda Klein stood up. "Ryan," she said slowly, "did you really not design this?" He opened his mouth, then closed it. She turned to me. "Mr. Ward, do you have documentation?" I smiled faintly. Every file, every version, every timestamp, and the original patent registered in my name. Amanda nodded once, sharp, decisive. "We're terminating our deal, effective immediately." That was the moment it hit Ryan. You could see it in his eyes, that perfect storm of panic, disbelief, and desperation. He reached out, grabbing her arm. "Wait, please," he's lying. "He's always been jealous of me." But Amanda pulled away. "Jealousy doesn't leave proof in code." She walked off. Others followed. Investors, partners, even a few family friends who had once worshipped him. And through all that chaos, my mother just sat there, silent. Tears welled in her eyes as she whispered almost to herself, We were wrong about you, Ethan." I turned to her, not out of anger this time, but exhaustion. "You didn't need to be wrong, Mom. You just needed to look." Her hand trembled over her chest. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know." "Yeah," I said quietly. "That's kind of the point." Ryan tried to salvage what little dignity he had left. "You'll regret this," he hissed as I passed him. I stopped, looked him dead in the eyes. "Maybe, but at least now, the world knows who you really are." Then I walked out. Cameras followed me. Reporters called my name, but I didn't stop. I didn't need their validation anymore. Outside, the night air hit me like a cleansing wave. For the first time in years, I felt weightless, free of his shadow. And as I looked back through the glass doors, I saw Ryan standing there, surrounded by the wreckage of his empire. Alone. It was poetic, almost cruelly so. Because the very thing he tried to steal, recognition, power, respect, was now the same thing that destroyed him. Later that night, I got an email from Amanda Klein. Subject line, partnership opportunity. She wanted to fund a new company mine. I sat there staring at the screen, heart pounding. I should have felt victorious, triumphant. But all I felt was quiet. Because the truth wasn't just about proving Ryan wrong, it was about reclaiming myself. And in that silence, one thought kept echoing in my head. Not of revenge, not of triumph, but of peace. For the first time in my life, I didn't have to be better than Ryan. I just had to be me. But deep down, I knew this wasn't the end. Because family doesn't just break once it cracks slowly and every truth leaves a scar. And as I walked away that night, I couldn't help but wonder, would Ryan ever learn from what he'd done? Or would he keep trying to steal what he could never create? Either way, I was done being the shadow. It was my time to stand in the light. You'd think that when your lifelong rival finally collapses, when justice actually catches up, you'd feel happy, victorious. Like the world finally handed you the trophy it kept giving someone else. But that's not what it feels like. It feels quiet, empty. Almost like standing in the ruins of a house you built with your bare hands, realizing you survived, but part of you still burned with it. That's how it felt in the weeks after the dinner. The fallout came fast and brutal. News outlets tore Ryan apart. Headlines like Golden Boy of Green Tech exposed as fraud, and Innovation Idol caught stealing brother's patent ran on every tech blog, every major paper. Clips from the dinner went viral the moment the screen lit up with my name became internet legend. Comment sections flooded with words like karma, justice, and damn, that brother deserves an Oscar for betrayal. Ryan's investors sued him within days. His startup's valuation plummeted overnight. Then came the legal actions. From my end, my lawyers filed a full patent infringement case and breach of intellectual property. With the evidence I'd gathered, it wasn't even a fight, it was a burial. And as for my parents, well, let's just say the silence was deafening. Mom called once, just once. She said, "Ethan, I can't sleep. I keep replaying everything in my head, all those times I compared you to. I thought I was pushing you to be better." I didn't know what to say. So I said, "You were pushing me, Mom, just in the wrong direction." She started crying softly. "Do you hate us?" "No," I said truthfully. "But I stopped needing your approval a long time ago." And that was it. No more calls after that. Dad didn't say a word either, not even after the lawsuit was finalized. He was too proud, or maybe too ashamed, probably both. Ryan, though, he tried to call too. Multiple times. The first voicemail I got from him sounded desperate. That kind of panicked breathing you can hear through the phone. "Ethan, listen. You won, okay? You got what you wanted. Can we just fix this? I'm losing everything. Please, don't do this to me." The second one wasn't desperation. It was anger. "You think this makes you better than me? You think you're some hero now? You'll always be the jealous little brother, Ethan. Always." I didn't respond to either. Because the truth is, I wasn't the jealous one anymore. I was free. And that freedom was worth more than any revenge. Weeks passed. The noise around the scandal faded as it always does. Internet outrage burns hot and dies fast. But the scars it leaves on the people in the center of it, those don't fade so easily. Ryan went bankrupt. The company shut down. He sold his car, his apartment. I even heard he tried to move out of state, to start over. But you can't outrun who you are. Not when the internet keeps receipts. Meanwhile, I rebuilt quietly. Amanda Klein reached out again and said, "Ethan, your tech deserves to live beyond the drama. Let's start fresh with your name on the patent, your story at the front." And for a while, I almost said yes, but something stopped me. Because I didn't build the Aurora Core to make millions. I built it for people, for change, for something real. That dream got lost somewhere between rivalry and revenge. And I wanted it back. So I took a road trip, alone. No cameras, no investors, no media, just me, a beat-up truck, and the prototype sitting in a steel case on the passenger seat. I drove for hours, through winding roads, rain-soaked fields, small towns that didn't even show up on GPS, until I reached a rural school in the outskirts of Pineville. A friend of mine, a teacher I'd met years ago during my college outreach project, had once told me about it. "We barely have power," she said. "When it rains, the lights flicker for hours. Sometimes the kids study with flashlights." That memory had haunted me ever since. And now, standing there, under the dim orange sky, I realized this was where the Aurora Core belonged. The school was small, with faded paint and cracked windows, but the laughter inside, loud, honest. When I walked in carrying the device, the principal looked confused. "Can I help you?" I smiled. "Yeah, I'm here to keep your lights on." It took a few hours of setup connecting it to the grid, testing the power flow, calibrating the system. The kids gathered around, watching curiously, whispering to each other. "Is that a robot?" one of them asked. "No," I said with a grin. "Something better." Finally, I pressed the activation button. The hum of power filled the air, steady and soft. The classroom lights brightened for the first time without flickering. Computers booted up instantly. The fans whirred. Even the old projector turned on, glowing with warmth. The kids cheered. And in that moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not the kind that comes from victory, the kind that comes from purpose. I stayed until sunset. Watched the kids gather around glowing monitors, learning, playing, dreaming. The principal thanked me, tears in her eyes. "You don't know how much this means to them." "I think I do," I said softly. As I packed up to leave, I took one last look at the Aurora Core, shining gently in the corner of that small classroom. My invention, my purpose. And I realized Ryan could steal my credit, my recognition, my family's pride, but he could never steal this. He could never steal the reason I built it. That night, I sat under the stars beside my truck. The same stars I used to look up at as a kid, wondering why everyone loved Ryan more. Now I didn't care. The sky didn't play favorites. It shone for everyone, even those who'd spent their whole life in the shadow. I smiled to myself, watching the horizon flicker with the faint lights from the school. And in that moment, I finally said goodbye. Not just to Ryan, but to the version of me that kept trying to prove I was enough. Because I was. I always had been. Ryan stole my invention, but he could never steal what I built it for. Alright, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the story. We have so many more amazing stories coming your way, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. Our goal is to reach 100K subscribers by the end of this year, and we'd love for you to be part of this journey. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.